everybody, and welcome to another amazing episode of My EdTech Life. Thank you so much for joining us on this wonderful Saturday morning or evening, or depending on where you are joining us in the world, whatever time of day. I just want to say thank you for making us part of your day. And as always, my friends, thank you so much for all the likes, shares, follows, all of the support. I really appreciate all the love that you give to our show, our podcast. As you know, our mission is to connect educators and creators one show at a time. And I am excited to welcome back a returning guest. She was here uh, several hundreds episodes ago, probably, as we were coming back from COVID and schools were reopening. But I am grateful to have my amazing and wonderful friend, Bonnie Chelette, here on the show. Bonnie, how are you this
I
morning?
I'm so good. Like I said, I feel like we grew up together, Fonz. I feel like, yeah, I'm excited
Yeah.
to be.
No, absolutely. It all started because of
Yeah,
everything shutting down and then global GEG and just connecting and various
such a catalyst.
activities, doing so much stuff during that time. And yeah, it's like amazing. Like we're just catching up, but it's been great to just
Yeah.
build those relationships and be lifelong friends, even though we've never met in real life. But the
Hey,
fact
we're gonna
that
make it happen.
yeah, we will. So I'm excited about today's conversation. And, as you know, like we were kind of giving a little bit of this talk here, how you were first on the show, as we were coming back brick and mortar, and a lot has changed since.
Mhm,
I know that your current role has changed also as well. And we'll talk a
mhm.
little bit about that. Our conversation really centered around coming back to open schools and how teachers
Yeah,
felt about technology. So as right now the hot topic from December on has been technology, has been generative AI.
yeah,
Uh, do we use it? Do we not use it? What are some of the policies? How are districts being very cautious with this? As we know, there's a lot of we see a lot of the shiny stuff that is out there that can be done with it that really excites us. But then, sometimes we don't spotlight some of those just concerns that can still be out there with allowing the technology just full on full force out there. So before we jump into that, I would love for you to share with me and with our audience, what has changed for you as far as professionally from the time that you were here till now. Tell us a little bit about your new role, and just give our audience members also just a little background about your ed tech,
exciting.
I guess the passion in ed tech that you have too as well.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah, last time I was on the show, I did educational technology for the East Baton Rouge Parish School System down in Louisiana. And like post COVID, an opportunity came, and now I am the director of ed tech for the Department of Education in Louisiana. I work on the academic content team, so it's not. I don't just do like hardware and that kind of stuff. I get to like really work with teachers and build that. We Before this, there wasn't really like a person that like made specific technology resources, right? Like before at the state level, we did like a lot of E-rate, a lot of funding, cybersecurity, but we're really trying to flesh out like, you know, the middle of that Venn diagram between like, scripted curriculums and stuff like that and technology and how teachers can use it.
Nice. Well, I mean, that's amazing. And I couldn't think of a better person to be in this role and to do these things because of the experience that you've had and just the knowledge, the passion. And so I love that we have somebody that is of a strong advocate of what, technology can do and how it can help build students up and learning experience, but also for teachers as well. As I know for a fact, all those years that you spent yourself training teachers and really seeing what the needs are, what we can do better, and then, of course, some of those barriers. So, I want to ask you now in your current role working, what are some of the things now that you see things from a higher level and perspective? And I know the last conversation we had is where there was some of that tech pushback. So, I
Mhm.
want to know from that time till now, are you still seeing a little bit of that tech pushback, or are you seeing a little bit more comfort? Maybe what are some of the pluses that you see and maybe some of those obstacles that might still be there?
Yeah, I don't think teachers want another thing. Like I think they're more evaluative about their time and like, am I going to take time to learn this new thing for what? which I'm all here for. You know, I've been told that I was pro teacher, too pro teacher very early in my career, and I need a stamp that says that because I stand by that. But yeah, I think that teachers were like when COVID first happened, everybody was in survival mode, right? Like we were
Mhm.
all like just trying to figure it out and fill the space when we were online. And I think I saw a really interesting chart the other day about like spending from Esser, and it was
Oh,
like all this spending on all these tech tools, and there wasn't really like a return on investment, right? Like we just filled the space. And I think now teachers, you know, and leadership needs to like, okay, we bought this, but why? And did it work? And I think teachers are thinking about that a lot more. Like, why am I gonna get another login? Because nobody wants another login, and nobody has any passwords left in their brain. Like, why am I taking the time to do this? And so I don't think there's much pushback is like scrutiny.
oh, man, I love that. And you know what? That's actually even myself. And I think one of those things is like you and I are much alike in that I've always been pro teacher also and coming in, to central office with that aspect too. And sometimes, I don't agree with some of the decisions that are made because like you said, it's like another login,
Mhm.
another platform. What else? And so one of the things that you mentioned though is like with a lot of that ESSER funding, you're absolutely right. It's like, oh, we're just filling in all these gaps or putting in band-aids into, these huge open wounds that could be taken care
Yeah,
of with, I think, more PD, but for tier one, like actual solid
yes,
PD for teachers that's usable and not just, hey, put them on this program and that's it, and thinking that that's going to be a solution, but it's not.
yeah,
And
yeah,
one of the things you mentioned is the return on investment. I recently heard, I was on a call actually with a platform, and the gentleman said, was like, look, we understand the return on investment, but have you ever thought about the return on instruction? Like, is there any research? Do those reports that you pull, do they actually show that there has been progress, that there has been growth? Because I can be on a platform for 20 minutes, like my teacher told me, and I could do one problem, but I did my 20 minutes, and then you've got
yeah,
kids that'll be there 20 minutes and they'll do 100 problems and they'll get, maybe two right. And then you'll get the ones that do all that. But so how do you reconcile and say, like, yes, this platform was good and efficient, it did work? So, yeah, those are some of those conversations that are very important. And leading up into this next year, I think that we definitely need to give teachers more of a voice, which is one of the things that we switched. We're giving out surveys, and then based on that, it's like, okay, what
right,
platforms are we going to keep, and what might we
right.
switch? So what are your thoughts on that?
I was about to say you should just ask the teachers because they're
Mhm.
gonna know what works. They're also gonna know like what takes too long. You know what I mean? Like and that's something we're working on. Like when we evaluate curriculums, nobody's looked at like how many mouse clicks does it take to get to the first thing.
Oh,
You know what
yes.
I mean? And so we're adding that. So, everything at the state level, like it happens a lot slower. But yeah, like looking at curriculums, obviously from the very important academic standpoint, but also like when are teachers going to like it? Like, is it like there are a few, and I'm not going to name names, but there's one that I absolutely hate that's been widely adopted. It takes too long. It's too many. It's too much. It's too much. And it's just not, and that's never been evaluated before, right? Like like ease of use. We don't
Mhm.
always look at that. Like does it have its own login? Because you can just throw it out the trash. You can throw it out if it has a separate login. Nobody's going to use it. And things like that. So really like I think moving forward, like I want to work with, teachers, the schools on like evaluating the stuff they've already purchased. Because S are here, they're gonna have to evaluate one way or another.
Yeah.
So looking at that spending, and some of it did work, like some of it might have been great. But figuring out what was great and what was just, sat on the shelf.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that. Like for Texas, so I'll speak here because I'm not sure how the state testing works in your area, but I know the biggest fear, or I guess that the state put on us, is these new test items where it's a drag and drop, it's an inline choice, a drop down box, and you should see like people's reactions. It's amazing how most of the leadership just panicked on that because they think like, oh my gosh, these kids don't know how to do drag and drops, or
Yeah,
they don't know how to drag this into this box or
I
click
know.
this little drop down menu. And then what happens is they, because of that and that fear, they decided to purchase products that were supposed to help train this, because their mentality was is if we can help them train on how to drag something into a box, oh, that's going to be like they're going to pass the test. But no, it doesn't. It's like you need that tier one. If you don't have
Yeah,
the tier one, the kid can drag and drop all he wants all day and still get the wrong answers.
right.
And then it was, the platform was, again, too many clicks. For myself, I always look, if I can
Too
get
many mouse
to
clicks.
where I need to within 3 to 4 clicks, I am good. After that, I'm like,
It's
no,
too many.
yeah, that's way too many. And so the
We learned that
student,
from
yeah,
Leslie Altman too. She's probably not watching, but we did learn that from the same person.
yes, no, for sure, for sure. And so the other thing is, like you mentioned, is because the overreaction and the fear,
Mhm.
lots of platforms were used, thousands of dollars spent, and
Billions.
then a lot
Yes.
of it, like the usage, wasn't really there. And then at the end of the day, the platform that TEA uses, it's a company that they have a practice test that the students
Hmm.
can go online and actually practice the tools that
Yeah,
they
we have
need.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, so I went to a school, and they're like, okay, you're going to start pulling out some of these third graders and so on to help them. I went in there, and the third graders were like, sir, this is what I'm going to do here. I double click here. Look, this is what this does, and so on. I'm like, man, you guys know this. And I can't believe that we spent so much money on a
Yeah.
platform that we didn't really need. And then we could have just used this. And the fact that we're not giving our students enough credit that they can do a drop down menu, I mean, come on, like that money could have been better spent, I feel, always for more teacher support, more of that actual tier one instruction, rather than, hey, here's another platform, fill in the gap, you're going to be good.
Yeah. Fill in space. I really think that a lot of that was just like, let's fill all the time that they have online because we don't know. And I don't think any of that was ill intentioned at all. But yeah, I think too, like as the people creating, the assessments and that kind of thing, just have to look at like how are they telling the students to, like did we tell them how to do it?
Mhm,
Instead of making a big deal, like simple IORAD tutorials, solve it. You
mhm,
know what I mean? Like that's it. That's all you need.
yeah.
So just thinking about like how did we tell the students how to do the drop and drag, and then wouldn't necessarily need
Yeah,
all the other stuff. You
exactly.
just tell them right the first time. It's good.
Yeah. No, excellent. So I want to ask you now, again, in your new role, and I always love this because now you see things through different perspectives. And sometimes
Sure.
even our ideas change too, because sometimes we're at the ground level, we're in the classrooms, we're at this school level, district level, and now that you're at a higher level, you get to see more. So I want to ask you, is there certain things right now that you would see, even though we are passionate about ed tech, maybe a couple of things that may be hindering the learning, even though it is ed tech? And I know we mentioned a little bit here, like, the testing platforms, adding something else, but,
Mm.
is it really more on the teacher side that we really need to do that? Or is it some of the tech itself, just like, hey, you know what, like we made great progress during COVID, but now we're seeing that this is just lacking here.
I think the tech is going to have to tie into standards more.
Okay.
Like I was talking to a vendor yesterday and they're like, oh, we want to do PD on our tool. And I was like, that's not what we do anymore. Like we do how to use this in this classroom to do this, not just like, you know what I mean? Like we're just going to have to take it like 2 steps more, because in the end, when you just teach teachers how to use a tool vaguely, it's still on them to figure it out, right? Like this, it's still more work on them, even though they're so kind and they figure it out. But yeah, like I think that's where tech tools are going to have to take like their implementation and their PD. It has to be more specific.
That's gonna be a soundbite right there. Like, that was perfect, because you're absolutely
Yeah.
right, Bonnie. I mean, think about it, for ourselves, years and years of, oh, we're gonna teach you how to use the tool, but
Mhm.
okay, how does it look like in practice? And this week, actually, myself and our math content specialist were on a call with a platform too, and they're like, oh yes, we can do this. They serve as a delivery system for your curriculum, and one of the upsides of this platform already was the fact that they said, we will take what your math calendar looks like, where you expect the
Mhm.
teachers to be, and we will line it up with those specific standards, the
Well,
way
there you
that you
go.
have it. So everything is tied. So when they teach, they get that second layer
That's
on
the
the
thing.
computer,
Yep.
so on and so forth. And so everything was great, everything was fine. But our math content specialist came up and brought that up, and he said, okay, that's great that you can do that, but who else is using this around here? And can I speak to the teacher? Because I want to see how she uses it. And that's absolutely right. How does she implement it? How do you put
Yes.
those puzzle pieces together? Because, like you mentioned, that burnout, we don't want our teachers to get burnt out because, like you said, it's often put on them to figure out how to use the platform and then how they're going to integrate it with no direction. And it's kind of like, but yeah, so I definitely agree with you on that, on what you just said.
Just to have to be more targeted, and just like you said, I was thinking that like earlier because I was thinking about what we're going to talk about. Cause all excited. Like any tech you buy for your house, right? You have a specific purpose. Like the little clicker that helps me. I got a little thing that helps me find my phone and I can find my keys with it. Um, like if that didn't work, I would throw it out tomorrow, right? But before I bought it, I looked up online and I was like looking at what other people said. Um, so yeah, like you wouldn't treat tech at your house the way we do at schools right now. You wouldn't
Yeah.
just buy it with being like, oh, sort of something. It has to have a purpose, and you look at reviews, and you want your money back if it didn't work.
Ooh, I like that too. Get your money back. That's for sure. All right. Excellent. So, all right. So, we often talk about also 21st century skills where we are already well into the 21st century skills. So now I started
Yeah.
saying, like, hey, we got to prepare them for 31st century skills because I
Oh,
think that at least we now have
no.
something to look forward to because we're already deep in the 21st century. And so that is often mentioned. We know now we've got the technology because of COVID. The thing that came out of it is just like the one-to-one devices. But like you said, the teachers got thrown just into this.
Just swimming,
They Yeah,
you know.
they had to adjust. Now they're back. And so what are some things that you are seeing in a great way that we are already doing great, at least from your
Yeah.
area, to help prepare those students for those 31st century skills? Or are we still lacking? What might be some of the things that we may still be lacking to really get the students work ready, proficient,
Mhm.
college ready, proficient, and so on?
Well, and I know we all want to talk about AI, but it's because we're all obsessed, right? Myself equally. And I was talking to a colleague the other day, and he said he made a really interesting point because we were talking about Firefly and how you have to like really find the puzzle of words where you want it to come, to create what you want, and that's a soft skill. Do you know what I mean? And so like
Mm.
language, and I think in this the some of the things that we think are being left behind are now going to come back like in a completely different way because you're going to have that vocabulary and that like ability to manipulate language, and that's going to be a 31st century skill, right? Like
Mhm.
that's what if you're in advertising, you're going to have to be able to know these are the words to put together to get what I want. So I think it's going to have to just be like a whole paradigm shift in what we think people are using soft skills for. It's not necessarily just to talk to other people now. It's going to be like to communicate, to lack of a better term, with the computer.
Yeah. No, and you mentioned Firefly,
I'm
and
obsessed. I don't even all day.
actually, yeah, with all the AI tools, I think that that's what I have
Yeah.
found, the writing skills, and the
Yeah.
thought process. And for myself, honestly, I've never been a big fan of writing. Maybe it's just, I don't know, either my teachers
Yeah.
just never really got me into it, or just myself, either
And
just
you chose to
blocking.
get a PhD. I'm
Yeah,
just
yeah, exactly,
yeah,
exactly. And so I just kinda block myself off from that sometimes
yeah.
because, but when I do it, I know I have to do it. But what I have found is that even with using some of these tools that, help productivity, help my workflow even here for the podcasting and the post-show production and all of that, you really have to be very specific in the way that you
Mhm.
word things so you can get that specific output. And so what I
Yeah.
find myself doing is, not that it's like some people may say, "Oh, well, what's the point of this if I could have just written this myself or done it?" I was like, "No, no, no. Well, the point is that sometimes, you have that initial idea, you get an output, and then you start thinking like, okay, let me retweak this. And now all of a sudden it's like, man, I'm not that bad of a writer, but I just needed that little help to just get me through and get my thoughts
I-
together,
I'm going to send it to you. I read a cool article the other
Uh,
day. It was like how like things you should like thought process for using AI, and one of them was like AI as a collaborator. And I was like, that's it. I was like, that's the thing. That's what I'm talking about. You know, sometimes, and like I love that you can get like Chat GPT to write in different voices and all that kind of stuff. I think you saw me post, I got it to explain cybersecurity as Samuel L. Jackson, which was hilarious. But like, you know, when you're writing something and you just sometimes you need help.
yeah.
I thought Grammarly Pro, I love Grammarly Pro, first of all, because it catches passive voice, which is apparently the only thing I do when I write. And you know, and that's AI. So like what's the line? You know, what is cheating? What's the line? When we start with Canva, you know, you don't just who starts from scratch, crazy people. You know, we all start with a template. And so, you know, is that cheating? And just thinking about you know, now we just never had a template for writing. We never had anything like this. So
Yeah. No, and you're absolutely right. Thinking about that process, it's like, why would you want to reinvent the wheel and start from scratch when
yeah,
somebody has already come up with something that now you can add your own spice to it, reword it, change it, and
yeah.
all of those things. And I love that you said, AI is a collaboration tool.
Mhm.
And you're absolutely correct. I mean, and seeing some of your posts too, like, that you share
Yeah.
is just something that's great. And we see the potential there for us as adults for our productivity. I see it for teacher, lesson planning
Mhm.
and reinventing and just refreshing what they already have. And when we came back from COVID and lockdown, there was so much video content that was created by teachers that when they came back, I said, that you can reuse what you just did, and just showing them how to do some minor edits, to have tutorial videos already on hand. But
Yeah.
they don't think about that, because again, it's just the training. Then they go back to brick and mortar, and it's like, oh, this is the way I've always done it. I'm just going to stick to this. And I thought it was also because of that trauma that they went through for that
It
year,
was
two
trauma.
years. They're like, no, 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 I don't. That just makes me think of this dark time in my professional career. And so there's still some teachers that are slowly now
Yeah.
getting back on that and seeing that, hey, I don't have to start all over. I can take what I already have, refine it, and now not only that, but now I can differentiate accordingly for my students that may have or may need some additional supports. And I'm all here for that.
Yeah.
For the adult use and getting some time back for
Mhm.
teachers. So my question to you is how do you feel about this in student hands?
Mhm. Yeah, it's the big question. I think, you know, Bonnie, this is not anybody's policy, but like my thoughts, like with my daughter, it's always like this is experimental and we don't necessarily experiment with children, right? Like we need more information. Um, that's a whole, you know, but first and like foremost with schools, we're gonna have to protect our students' data. I know that's not a glamorous, exciting response, but like, you know, data is such a thing. And so, and me and you were talking before this started, like we just all click through the terms and conditions. But like when we're going to roll this out, like as a state or as a school, we're going to have to actually read those terms and conditions. And are they, you know, are they tracking our students? Is this opening a portal to, you know, like what kind of back and forth is this? Is it opening a portal to our entire, you know, server? We also talked about how I am the cybersecurity breach in my house. Like I am the problem. It's me. Um, 100%. And, you know, because I just click the button and move on. But when we start to use it with kids, we're just going to have to, one, like I said, I think the biggest thing first off the bat is going to be seeing what data that pulls, what it stores. Um, if you know, and if kids do it on their own time, I can't control that. But at a school level, and this is what I keep telling teachers too, like your data is on that same server, right? So like when I'm protecting the student's data, I'm also protecting your social security number. So like all of those things play in, and we're just gonna have to check the not fun side of it first before we
Mhm.
put it loose on our kids.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, I agree with you 100% on that too. I mean, as much as I love ed tech, I'm here for that
Yeah,
side too. And I'm saying, like, I use it personally, but then
yeah,
I know what I'm putting in. I have control, knowing what not to put in. But also, we need to do better, creating digital citizens in our campuses, and even for our teachers to know what is appropriate information to put into any AI app, and also for students as well. I love that. I know that there'll be education, suites
yeah.
that'll come out, and they'll have to
Mhm.
follow the COPA, FERPA, all of that
All that.
compliance and so on. So at least there will be a little bit of some regulation there as well. But we
There's
all
got to
know
be.
that not all of that is perfect.
Mhm.
It's the scary thing is when you've got those early innovators, like we get really excited and we want to try out the new tool, and then
And
we'll
they don't
just say, oh, let's go ahead and try it in class. But wait a minute, did you read
no, you
the
didn't.
age level, the
'Cause none of
appropriate,
us
like,
do.
yeah. No, we
Just
just go through the box and just click, and all right, everybody sign on
all
using your SSO and your Google Classroom, and we're fine. We're gonna go ahead and use this.
yeah.
But you don't know what you're doing. And I think oftentimes, as an educator, and I know I did it, in the classroom, is we get so excited and we try something different
Mhm.
because we want to just spice things up. We'll use this tech without us really thinking or seeing what it's doing, because it falls into that
So
education
excited.
category.
Yeah.
And we were talking about, there are platforms out there, and I won't mention those platforms, but usually
Yeah.
every ed tech platform that is out there usually says 13 and over. But
Mhm.
then we also see teachers use it, first, second, third, because it's that easy to use. But does it make it right for them to use it, even
Yeah.
though it's considered in the education space? Or should we still consider, like, hey, I know it says 13, like, we need to stick to that? Or are we just being also too just like, no, chat gpt, because of the cheating, we'll get rid of that, but we'll still have these others that are
Yeah.
in the education
Yeah, like if
category?
you're we there I heard a debate start about like this kind of stuff in a board, and they were talking about like chat GPT, and I was like, oh, like you could block chat GPT, and if that would make you feel better, but that's like not even that's like blocking one site on the entire internet. Like, but that's if that makes you feel better. But I don't want to ignore Jim's question about AI as a personal
Yeah.
education assistant. One, I need that, right? Like, don't we all need something? But like I think that ties in what we're just saying. Definitely, definitely older kids, but at the same time, making sure, whatever company that is, they sign a data sharing agreement. I have to, like I said, nobody's going to win awards for data sharing agreements, right? It's not glamorous. But something that we do when we write them and vendors don't like is there's like an if there's a breach, they are held accountable. Nobody likes that clause in there, and I'm like, well, too bad. Like that's what it is. So that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. That paperwork. Now, I know that we can do better, and we definitely need to have those discussions. But because there's so many moving parts, I want to ask you, in your current role and where you're working, have those conversations started as far as policy for the state? Or even, have you heard about any schools within your area that are already talking about specific policy for AI tools in the classroom?
Um, I mean, there's obviously discussion. I don't work in the policy department. I couldn't. Those people, this is a different skill set than I have because I just run my mouth. But they're better at not doing that. But I know, like on my team, like I remember being at FETC and really learning about it the first time, and I was like, God, there's a thing. And then a few months later, they're like, this is a thing. I was like, I know. And I think for us, like we think policy should have started 6 months ago, and like like the snowball's got to roll. So now right now in our state, and from what I understand in other states, because I haven't seen any other state policy, it's right now it's a school level thing. And I think a lot of our school systems in the summer are about to rewrite their acceptable use policies to include like how they want to address it. um, we're currently in a legislative session, so I might tomorrow hear, we have a policy now, but I haven't heard that much like in other legislations either. So which I think sounds for us, but I think that means that there's research being done and people are looking into it rather than, I'd rather them take a little too long and like really deep think about it than make like a knee jerk decision.
Yeah.
Do you know
No,
what I mean? So hopefully people do take their time. Because I think too, like we're way ahead of this game. Like I don't know if it's an issue necessarily in my daughter's classroom yet. Like we're so excited and like let's do all this, but I don't know necessarily taking over schools yet. I know it, but I'm talking K-12. I think at the higher ed level, this is a whole different ball. Like we got to draw that line because higher ed has to have completely different policies.
yeah.
Higher
No,
ed, it's a whole different ball game. They
yeah.
have, you look up higher ed responses to AI, very clear, very clear.
Yeah, absolutely, and I agree with you on that on the higher ed side. It still hasn't been an issue, at least in my programs. Like I
Yeah,
mentioned earlier, or in other shows, is at the beginning of the semester, they're like, "Hey, we know this is out there. There isn't any formal policy yet from the university. However, if my prof was like, if I read something that is kind of like, and the thing is like some of these profs, we've had them semester after semester. So they're
yeah,
already
yeah,
familiar with our writing, they're familiar, with our style and so on. So they just said, if I read something and I just have some questions on it, and that's all
yeah,
they say, we'll go ahead and just hop on a chat and just they just wanted to know, okay, like explain it to me, or just kind of have that one-on-one of like, hey, can you rewrite this, and things of that sort. But I think that's definitely going to be coming, to the K-12 space. But like you mentioned, right now I think from January on, it's like state testing season, so we're just
yeah,
going to block everything else, and everything just will fall on the wayside, and we'll deal with it when we get there. And sometimes it's a little too late, because it's
yeah.
already out there. But like you said, at least those conversations are being had.
I
And
definitely think they're being had. I
yeah,
don't think I think people are talking. Yeah, like Amanda said, I really want people, like I met somebody the other day in my building and we were talking about, she was like, because I have this little running document, right? Like my thoughts, if anybody asks in the whole building, like there's a little Bonnie document, whether they want to read it or not, it's up to them. And I showed it. She's like, what is your goal here? And I was like, because I need people to know what it is. Period. I was like, full stop. She was like, that's it. I was like, that's it. I just need people to know what it is. And she laughed at me and I was like, that's just the real goal right now. It's
yeah,
just so people don't think it's witchcraft or, anything like that. We want to like, this is, and the good and the bad. Like, yeah, there is some scary part. Like we said, tracking your data. Nobody wants another Westworld, because like that's the thing, preferences and ad clicks and stuff. That's relevant data.
yeah,
So we have to, you have to watch all that. And
yes,
yeah. So I do hope people really take that, and I think they will. From all the conversations I've heard, it's, like we just need to learn more about it,
yeah,
which is the answer we want, right? Like that's the answer we want to hear.
yeah. And right
Not
now,
like,
I know what we're seeing too is there's so many businesses I've noticed that have sprung up in the ed tech space or in the education space of, hey, we'll provide professional development to your district. We'll come over
mm,
here. We'll do this and we'll do that. And so, there are some people out there that have those good intentions of like, hey, we want to share, we want to show you. And I guess once you get to that point of, yes, we want to leverage this. Well, okay, let's put it into practice and do that. And so again, we're seeing a lot of platforms that are, friendly, like I know we've got Canva, but also, we need to make sure as far as the text to
yeah,
image, and you've got all things that you
yeah,
could do there that are available for students. And I feel as long as we're following that policy, it's a creation tool. We definitely need students to be very creative instead of just, just sitting get. It's like, hey, let's create some of the learning. They can put it into words. I mean, I see a lot of advantages to that. Adobe Express also as well, with a
yeah.
lot of the things that they'll be coming out with, and
I
Firefly.
heard they got some stuff. I don't know what it is,
Yeah.
but I met
Yeah,
with
they'll
Toby
they'll have some
yesterday.
stuff that's gonna be great. And so I mean, like I said, education, what I love about it is a lot of these companies that are already within the schools and are very well known have taken a lot of these things into consideration
Yeah,
and are going to provide tools that I think, like for teachers, they don't have to second guess that, hey, is this gonna be okay? or not, because one, you've already been using them in one way or another. Your district has already vetted them. They already have their forms in. They do all of those things. But still, we also just still have to be very cautious and show students, like, be cautious with what you're putting in, because we all know there's always, that one little apple in the bunch that can, kind of do little
I
things and so
know.
on, and but yeah, again, it's just getting to know. I think that's the most important thing. A lot of teachers out
Yeah.
there still don't know what is happening or what's going on with this. And even we're having a tech conference in May, and there's only 3 presentations on AI. And so that goes to show that even in my area, not to people may be aware about it, of it, but they're not
Yeah.
like full on yet until they really is more forward facing, I guess. So
Yeah. And what do you say right now? You know what I mean? Like, here are the fun things you can do, but like, yeah. And then Amanda made a good point. Like, there's tons of Wakelets and facts. And I will, if I can search for it and look it up.
mm.
I have to make it into a 1-pager though. You know what I mean? Like, nobody's going to read 5 pages of Bonnie's thoughts. So I got to be succinct.
Yeah, you
But
can
yeah, Jim.
pop it
Yeah.
into ChatGPT.
I'm not saying I didn't, but
Yeah.
yeah. So keep in mind though, this is only version 1. Yeah, exactly. And
Yes.
that's what you can ask my team. I have been harping on this. I'm like, guys, it's here. Like, don't like there are no policies anymore that like can be like, we're not going to use it. Done. Like, we're done on that. But like, figuring out, like I said, if we do, like, say we're not using any AI in schools, what tools is that going to block?
Mhm.
Our tools going to have to put it on their front page too, like we use AI, and maybe how many tools that we didn't think were using AI would have to put it.
Yeah. And
Um,
and
yeah.
that's great that you mentioned that, because we were talking about, and this is something that came about also in another show, is we're talking about, as teachers, we never thought about AI, even though it was already working for us, in the
Hmm.
sense of, you've got platforms that have certain algorithms that'll put students on a pathway, close gaps, and so
Yeah.
on. And it was interesting that this last year we adopted a platform that is for math, and I got a call from a teacher who was just really frantic. And this is a ninth grade algebra teacher,
Yeah.
phenomenal teacher. She calls me, she's like, Mr. Mendoza, I think this program's broken, or it's not working properly. And I was like, okay, what do you mean? So I log in, I impersonate her, and then I impersonate the student. And she's like, why is my student getting fourth grade measurements and so on? And then I said, oh, so this program, due to how that student, did on their little diagnostic exam, said, hey, I know you're ninth grade, but these are some of the skills that you're still lacking, and put a little fourth grade track on there for certain skills. And she was panicking. She's like, why is it doing this? And I said, well, believe it or not, there may be some students that get to ninth grade that
Hmm.
still haven't quite mastered some of those elementary skills. And so what this program does is that it just kind of like brings that together, where it doesn't bring them down to fourth grade. It'll still keep them at their level, but we'll add some of these fourth grade skills. And I think from that
Yeah.
moment on, I was like, okay, something's up. And then all of a sudden, all of this started happening, where now, before we would put the students on the platform, we wouldn't see it. And now all of a sudden it's right in our face. And now it's like a living
Yeah.
thing, like right here. So that was kind of like that shock.
I do
So
think, I hope something that comes out of this too is like increased transparency, because they never advertised that they were using anything like that before,
mhm,
So definitely, I think definitely increased transparency will come out, because at minimum, vendors will have to indicate what kind of AI they're using
yeah.
somewhere. For some reason, they're going to
Mhm.
have to start putting it.
Yeah, and I love what Amanda says here. It says, "We love
Yeah.
AI when it works for us, but we fear it when we don't understand how it works with us." Ooh,
Yeah.
that is great, Amanda. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for sharing that. Yeah, and that's been often the case, that we're seeing. And but luckily, like I said, we've got great people in the education space, and there's some great teachers that are out there that are innovating and are using,
Oh,
the
great.
tool to maximize, teacher performance and efficiency and so on. So this
I
is
think that's
definitely
it.
what was
That's
that?
what, yeah, that's what we need to tap into, right?
Mhm.
Is like I do good work for sure. Not no doubt. But like how good could I be if I started on step 3? You know what I mean? Like if I
Mhm.
just got that little step, like jump to step 3, like now my work could be finished. And who gets to say their work is finished? You know, never. You're always like, am I done? Uh, like teachers, how could it help them leave, shortly after the bell rings? I know nobody leaves right in the bell, but you know what I mean? Like, and not be there till 5. Because we've all done it. Yeah, I did it. So yeah, no, I think that's what I know the focus is we push, to use it with students, but I really think should really push to teachers, and come out. Have you seen that cacti one?
Yeah.
That's crazy. If you're not familiar, it's basically like for teachers, it'll write your recommendation, like all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
So it's fascinating. But
Yeah.
yeah,
There's
so that's saving you time from all these things that take away from like your big picture things.
Yeah. And that's one thing that I love that you said too, and even when I first started this role 6 years ago, or it'll be 6 years at the end of this year, it was always like, okay, how can we maximize this platform or these platforms to really honestly, truly give teachers? I always say, like, if I can give you 5 to 10 minutes
Yeah.
back at the end of the day, and that was what I was shooting for. But now with something like this, where you can take care of the lesson plan
Mhm.
within 5 to 10 minutes and then really get to go home and just say, hey, I feel comfortable with what I already did. Because,
Yeah.
like you said, I'm already starting on step 3 instead of having to start from scratch. And that's why I always, tell teachers, it's like, hey, you already have so many resources from years of
Right.
experience. And you know how oftentimes, they'll say like, oh, well, that teacher teaches the same thing and it's the same lesson plan every year and so on. Well, now, like, they can definitely
Yeah.
refresh that lesson plan and bring it up to date, and they can differentiate appropriately and do those. And sometimes I think, you know, I want to say, and this is just me thinking, like, some of this, like Chat GPT or these other tools that'll come out for teacher use,
Hmm.
can kind of just reignite, refresh, and kind of give teachers that excitement of like, hey, you know what? I know I was thinking about possibly retiring this year, but maybe I can go maybe 2 more years, because it's like now they're seeing that productivity and that quality of life
Fun.
go up, and that they get to leave before 5 or even at 4:30 or maybe even at 4:15 at the end of the day, and they're going to be good. And so that to
And a
me
happy
is,
teacher is better for students.
yes,
And period. So
absolutely. Illustrious words of my friend Bonnie. I love that.
um
Period. Hard stop.
but yeah, and I think school systems could definitely look into like, and I mean this is just like in theory, but like what if you dumped all of the Texas English language arts standards into ChatGPT? Or like you dumped curriculums in there. I mean, then it would be able to pull it up, right? Then you would
Mhm.
have to you'd just have to tell teachers the right words to type in.
Yes. That is
Uh,
amazing.
you know what I mean? Like I haven't, um, and I know some curriculums don't always align with that, but like how I think school systems need to just like, how could we use it to be more efficient, to be more effective, to work with teachers?
Mhm.
Um, we'll work on the student thing, but like I know tech never comes top down though, right? Like it always starts with the teachers.
Yeah.
But I do think school systems and stuff can look into like how can this save my teacher's time? How can we leverage it?
Yeah. So Amanda says here, I've messed with integrating curriculum standards with it. Awesome. That's great.
Mm,
That's great. No, but I absolutely agree. Maybe at that curriculum standpoint, just say, okay, how can we do this? And luckily in our district, we have some great content specialists, and they're the ones that work with aligning the curriculum and so on. But like you said, based on the Texas standards, like our math content specialist doesn't go in line. Like he says, okay, here's the book, and you go one, chapter
yeah,
two. He actually ties things together that can already be put together. Like, so
yeah,
you'll start chapter 2 and then chapter 17, and then you put those together, because he's very methodical. Like, this guy's like a genius when it comes to lining up the math curriculum to prepare students for the state
I
exam.
don't those people.
So he knows exactly how to line that up, and I think that this would be also a great way to take what he already has and then really just add that additional layer, the differentiation pieces, or just how to clean it up or make it more I don't know, whatever works best for the teacher at that given time, because we also have to consider, and he considers, and he knows that he has teachers that are at different levels of proficiency,
Mhm.
and we're talking about comfort levels too.
Yeah.
But when he goes out and coaches them, he gets like 2 or 3 sessions with them, and then all of a sudden they're like, This is awesome, this is great, and it's easy." But also to be able to break down maybe some of that curriculum to, help build up those teachers all while teaching at the their school year.
Yeah.
So yeah, a lot of potential there for sure.
And
All right, so
like
oh, mhm,
simultaneously, like I've been, there are lots of conversations about AI, like in our space,
mhm,
and I'll share with leaders and say, this is like, it doesn't matter. This is what people are reading, right? Like, so whether your thoughts are this or that, this is what teachers are hearing, and this is what they're going to do. So if you like something different, you're going to have to say it, because this is what's happening, because this is who's doing the talking. So,
nice, perfect. All right, my friend. Well, I'm just gonna leave you with one last question, and I know
mhm,
right now the trend is AI
I
and so
know.
on. So I know we've talked about it right now, and we know that it's gonna be here to stay. And like
Here.
Jim added, this is really kind of like version one, and it's only gonna
Yes.
get better and better. By the day, it's just getting better and better. So my question to you is, looking ahead into the future, what do you see that? And this is, again, this is just your vision, not necessarily tying into what you're seeing in your state, but
Mhm.
what is your vision as far as the emergent educational technology that will be out there, and how it's going to start shaping education?
Hmm. I should have asked you this question in advance. I hope, like, just in general, whether it's AI, whether it's S or fun, anything that we've talked about, I hope, like, moving forward, people are more like reflective and evaluative, like in all of these things, right? Because something new is going to come along next year, and something new is going to come along next year. But I kind of want to get away. I think, like, if you big picture, tech in the beginning was just like devices, right? Internet devices, and then COVID hit, and it was like the dump of tools into the devices. So I think now we need to go in that third iteration of being like savvy with it, and no more like survival, but like holding these vendors accountable. Be like, wait, why did I buy this stuff from you? And savage vendors, but yeah, like I said, being more reflective, being more evaluative, and thinking things through.
That's great. I love it. I mean, and like you
Because
said,
there's something new that's coming. You know what I mean? Like, we don't even know. Next year it'll be a whole new thing.
yeah.
So we just have to think of like a big picture practice that we can apply to all of them.
Yeah, but I love it though. That's what you said really fits in so much. And I love, don't worry about the whole vendor thing. I mean, that's the way I am too. I'm just like, okay, is it
I'm
gonna
not
do this?
worried. I'm not
Yeah.
worried. Just always get emails like with people like, "Can I have 15 minutes of your time?" And I'll be like, you don't want to hear what I have to say. I promise." Like,
So yeah, no, but that's a exciting time. So thank you so much for sharing that. All right, Bonnie. So again, it's been an honor and a pleasure to have you here on the show as a
thank you.
second time guest. And I know that this won't be the last time that you'll be here as a guest, as we know that education changes, and and maybe even things in your area, neck of the woods, also changing. And so anytime that
Everywhere.
you want to come back and share, whether it's on ed tech or something else that you might see out there, just, you always have an open invite, as
Always glad
always,
to
my
come
friend.
here.
Yeah.
Congratulations on being like almost 200. I can't believe that's so awesome.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. I can't believe it's been 3 years. Like, it has flown by so fast. Like, from March 10th, 2020 till
Is that
now.
when it
Like,
launched? Like,
yeah, March 10th of 2020. Actually,
no
wait, was it April
way.
10th? April 10th of 2020. Sorry, it was April 10th of 2020. And then all of a sudden, it's just like now we're almost at 200
Oh my
episodes.
God, was
So
I on? I would feel like I was on like episode 4 then. Like,
no, not at all. I don't remember quite the episode yet, but I'll make sure and tweet about it that first time that you were on, which is
yeah.
such a great conversation. And as always, this was an amazing
Ah,
conversation as well. So thank you
anytime,
so much.
anytime. This is my jam. I was
I love
pumped.
it.
I don't
I
wake up
love
and
it.
do my hair on a Saturday morning for any other
Oh,
reason.
yes. Thank you, buddy. All right, my friend. So let's go ahead and wrap up the show. And I'm going to wrap up the show with the following 3 questions. And as you know,
Mhm.
you're very familiar with the show and the last 3 questions. However, the last question I'm going to change just a little bit. So it might kind of throw you off because it's not the usual question, but it won't be hard.
Okay.
But I'm
Okay.
just curious because you're a great friend and I just want to ask. So, Question number one is, in the current state of, I guess we'll do education, and
Yeah.
that'll include and encompass AI in there too. But
Yeah.
in the current state of education, what would you say is your current edu kryptonite?
Like what's
Yeah, like Superman's weakness was kryptonite. So that was like that weapon. So what is it in the current state of education that you hear a practice, whether it's edu speak or something that just weakens you or just kind of makes you be like, ugh, like I wish that would stop.
oh, and I'm not putting anybody down. I don't want to say never, but I wish we would, like, what hurts me the most is like some people that don't see the device as further than the S in Samer, right? It just sticks at substitution. And I know that has to happen. I know that. I get it. But like what hurts me is it only lives as the substitution, like as a textbook. And I'm like, oh, I could do so much more though. But I get the S is there for a reason, but I want us to move past the S in Samer. Less substitution.
I love that. That is such a great answer. Like that really hit
Yeah.
because it's true. Oftentimes it's just like, okay, we just went from paper to digital, which is great because I mean, you can still scribble on it and it's on
Yeah.
your computer. But I often liken it to, okay, at first, when we didn't have the Chromebooks, it's like I had my stack of papers in the corner of my desk that I had to grade for each class period. Now I have a digital stack.
Yeah, I
you
know.
know so instead of that digital stack living in my Google
Yeah.
Drive, I would rather see
Yeah.
that augmentation, modification, redefinition, where it's like, hey, you know what, give me your answer in a video format, give me your
Exactly.
answer, create, you and your partner or your team create a podcast, telling me what the highlights of this lesson were or your research and so on, and create those learning artifacts rather than just that digital handout that you already have.
It's
So
not a criticism. You know,
yeah.
it's if some teachers don't have enough support, how would
Mhm.
they get there? Or it's not a criticism. It's just like where I want to, like whatever supports I can provide to get there.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. Thank you so much, Bonnie. All right, question number two. If you could have a billboard with anything on it, what would it be and why?
It will probably be just another billboard that says LSU women's basketball won the national championship this year. Okay, that's
Yes, I figured it was gonna go somewhere along the line of LSU or something like "Go Tigers" or something
yes.
like that. So yeah, that's good. All right,
Sorry
and
for
did you
anybody who
make it?
doesn't know. I'm
You
making
made it
jokes.
out.
Yeah.
You made it
Huh?
out to some of the games, right? Some of
I
the
have season tickets.
there you go.
Yeah, I have season tickets, so I went to every game. Um,
Perfect.
yeah.
That's great. All right, Bonnie. Last question. This one's a little different because normally I'll ask, like, if this is your podcast, what would be one question you'd
Mhm.
have to ask me? But I'm going to switch it up because I say, you know what, my friend
I'll
Bonnie,
ask you
she's
some
great. I'm
questions.
going to ask away. And so my question to you is, if you could make one of your hobbies into a profession, which one would it be?
I think I have made my hobby into a profession. Um, like,
All right.
I don't know. Yeah, like I really do. Um, I do like to garden. I know that would be quite surprising, and I really do think that once I finish this dissertation, I think I would be like Leslie, like our little friend Leslie, and have a nice
Yes.
little like garden thing going on. I don't know if you can make that a whole profession, but it's
Yeah.
definitely
You
gonna
can
be
make
something.
like a nursery
I
or
get,
something like that and
yeah, I got to get away from
sell.
devices. I gotta.
Yeah.
Some point, we're gonna have to unplug, and that I've been working in my yard a lot more. But I'm like, all right, this is good for me. I got to get away from the computer. So
There you go. I like that. Gardening, you can definitely either start
yeah.
making, doing
Get
some
a
gardening stuff
tan.
as far
It's a
as like
workout. It's like a full,
Pinterest,
Yeah,
you're gonna put like your Pinterest boards. Maybe all of a
yeah,
sudden it's like you can
yeah.
sell some of your plants, make a little like nursery
Some
where people can come by and get like, Bonnie's,
get
I
some
don't know, like
bees. I could have Bonnie's bees. Like we could have a whole
yeah,
thing out here. Yeah,
yes, Bonnie's bees. Yes, and then you can
the
sell
whole thing.
honey. You can, yeah, you'll have like one of those little shops that's there. Everybody stops by, and
Yeah,
then you can get your, just your natural stuff, and then get a little bit of ed tech in there too as well.
because
I
I
don't
do
know.
not need any more things that deal with a computer. If I'm gonna pick up another hobby, it has to be outside because I spent up too much time playing on Firefly the other night trying to figure out a new mascot for our Mardi Gras parade. We're
There
mischief
you go.
managed. We're managed
Ooh.
mischief. It's like Harry Potter, and then the whole
Uh-huh.
parade is like flamingo themed. So I was like sitting there looking up flamingos in witch hats drinking a margarita. It's like way too much time
Oh,
doing that.
nice.
Yeah.
All right, my friend. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you being here, Bonnie.
I
It's
miss you
been
so
an
much. We
honor.
haven't talked to each other in so long.
I know
So
it's
glad
been
to be
great.
here.
Yes, no, I'm thankful that you were here and thank you for all your insight. Thank you so much for your shares. And I know like everything that you share comes from your experience. It comes from, your heart because of what you see. And I think you and I are very much alike in that we really want to look out for our teachers and help
Yeah.
them out as best as we can and just be advocates for them. So just thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And for our audience members, thank you, as always, for making my EdTech life what it is today. I want to thank Amanda for joining us. I want to thank
Yes.
Sherry also for joining us. And I want to thank Jim also, who's joining us. Thank you for all your comments. Thank you so much
Yes. Thank you.
for being part of this conversation. And please make sure that you connect with us and you connect with Bonnie. So before I finally wrap up, I forgot to ask Bonnie. Bonnie, how can our audience members connect with you?
No, I have my profile on there with my tech email, and then I'm always on the Twitter. I probably do Twitter the most. If you send me a LinkedIn message, I will eventually get to it. But LinkedIn is a little bit chaotic for me. It's not my jam. But Twitter is probably your best bet.
Perfect. And there you see her handle right there at Bonnie Chelette. So thank you so much. Make sure
There's
you
only
follow her
one.
on Twitter. Yeah, there's
It's
only
all
one.
my
And
handles. Yeah.
and you will see everything also as well on the show notes. So again, when you catch this on the replay, listen to it. Everything will be there. And so if you want to go and check out our podcast, please make sure that you go to myedtech.live, myedtech.live, where you can check out this amazing episode and the other 197 amazing episodes with educators that you can go ahead and take some knowledge nuggets from, sprinkle them onto what you are already doing great. Also, if you would love to contribute to our mission and support our show, we do have a merch store that you can go ahead and visit. We've got some caps, we've got some sweaters. So get ready for, your conference season, whether it's summer conferences, winter conferences. We've got a little bit of everything for you, and all of that goes back to our show. Please make sure you follow us on all socials at myedtech.live. Give us a like, share, follow, subscribe. That way, all the AI algorithms can start putting us into your feed and you can check out all the amazing shows. But thank you, as always, from the bottom of my heart. And my friends, don't forget, until next time, stay techie.